just speaking from where I'm from. So I have many... Still closer? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Kind of feels like an internal monologue in my head. So I have many personal reasons for taking a stand and becoming involved in V-Day. But these can wait until I have more time, or if you want to talk to me after. Today I want to address a very pressing question for me. How do we highlight the pervasiveness of a patriarchal culture of normalized violence without undermining personal responsibility in every single count of sexual violence? This question is at the heart of so many arguments I've had about Slutwalk this past year, even with those who I feel are allies. It would be wonderful, they say, if the culture was such that all spaces were safe. But until then, men growing up in patriarchy will act a certain way, and women need to know what they're walking into. This is what I hear a lot. In other words, the defense is possible that I didn't mean to rape anyone, the patriarchy made me do it.
Bullshit!
On occasion, I've even found myself slipping into this all too easy undermining of personal responsibility. So this event provides an opportunity to try to come to terms with this dialectic. So Slutwalk talks a lot about personal choice. I wanted now to tell two brief stories of the subtle way in which patriarchy pervades the thoughts and limits the choices of so many, even those who would consider educated and even privileged. First, an encounter on Richmond Road. Standing next to a woman in line in December, who was wearing next to nothing and shivering, I inquired as to whether she might be warmer with a coat. Her response, "Yeah, it sucks to be a girl sometimes." We talk here of a woman's right to dress however she wants, yet the social and cultural constraints of patriarchy had so affected this woman that she couldn't even imagine not choosing to wear that, and even before setting foot in the bar, she was already having violence wreaked on her shivering body. The other story was told to me a couple weeks ago by a very good friend of mine, who had been following my work with V-Day this year as an actor in Purple Sex and MMRP. He was talking to a couple women about a mutual friend. And while he had thought that the person was an alright guy, so he said, it came up that this person doesn't take no for an answer. My friend replied, in his mind innocuously, "Did you tell him that you had a boyfriend?" She said, "No." But I said no. Blasting a hole in his understanding that women's struggles were now mostly over. Patriarchy was so pervasive in his own mind that he had still assumed it to be a reasonable social norm that a woman's body, unless claimed by another man, was a man's right to exploit.
Shame.
This shocked him, and he became, he said, a feminist then and there. But still, this was a long process of priming before this moment was even possible. I also grew up a fish swimming in patriarchy. It has taken a lot of time, experience, luck meeting the right people, to dare to even think of evolving and moving on to a strange new land, where my old referents aren't there for familiarity. How do I affirm both female and male sexuality in their beauty, when in our current culture both are constrained and perverted by violence? How do I especially affirm male sexuality when its expression is so often violent and oppressive, even when both parties ostensibly consent to the acts under a violent and perverse cultural norm? It is clear to me that men's and women's liberation are tied together, and that we must work both together and separately to end the oppression. So, back to the initial question. We ignore the deep embeddedness and the nuance of the culture of patriarchal violence at our peril. This is not to say that each and every person who commits an act of sexual violence should not be held to personal account, but that we need to acknowledge the different stages people are at in their journeys of shedding this oppressive culture. We need wrecking balls like Slutwalk. Yes? But also the fine tools of disrupting the more nuanced discourse in a more gentle way to help those at different points on their journey along. This is why I became involved in V-Day. This is why I love the theatrical and storytelling approach. And my monologue in MMRP this year gave me one of the best expressions I have of where I stand and where I want to go. Now that I am able to love, I can say what men do without hating myself for it and without mistaking my power for violence. The tenderness of wolves, they call it. This is the tenderness men can give women. This is the story when shame finally